All right, guys. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, today's lesson is going to be about the next step in the French Revolution. We're going to get to the part where it really starts to kick off, okay? But this is the building point. This is where the people are really starting to get it, going to be upset with the rich nobles and the clergy, okay? So for the objectives, we're gonna analyze the significance of the tennis court oath, or examine what the Bastille meant for the poor people of France and the nobles, and we're create an argument on whether Louis XVI actually thought the people would turn against him. Okay. Now, this is your warm-up picture. Okay. Now, my question to you is pretty straightforward because if you look and really analyze the picture, I mean, look above, look at the bottom part, in the background, some of that. Look at the people's mannerisms. Does it look like they're kind of quiet, or does it look like they're, um, you know, being more animated? Okay. Now, if you notice too, in the middle, of the painting near the bottom, you'll see guys like writing things, on little tables and stuff of that. There's like a couple guys you can see. Um, my question is simply this: with all those people there and the way they are, do you think anything got done? Okay. What do you think? So tell me, if you say yes, yeah, things got done, or no, things couldn't have gotten done because blah, 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 blah. Okay. So again, be sure you answer the warm up question. Okay. Pause the video because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So here's the thing. That lady you see in that painting right there, that is the French Queen Marie Antoinette. Now, Antoinette was known for her extravagance lifestyle. Um, she wore the rarest perfumes, had the prettiest jewelry, the latest fashions in clothing. She didn't want to know how much it cost. She was just like, get it. I don't care where you get it from. I don't care if you have to go to China to get that perfume or India or wherever. Get it. I want it. Okay. And this caused some resentment from the poor people because, the poor people's taxes paid for that stuff. So it didn't come out of her pocket. The tax people's money paid for all that stuff. So they were like, who's this chick? I know she's a queen and everything, but geez, calm down. Now, there's a thing called the Mandela effect. This is when the something everyone could have, a lot of people swear that this is true, but it's not. So one of the things is like the Monopoly Man. Does he have a monocle? Those little one single glass over the eye, or not? And he doesn't. But people swear. No, no, no. I remember seeing him with the monocle. It's something people believe to be true, but it isn't. And one of those things deals with Marie Antoinette. The story goes like this: that she was told, there's a lot of poor people out there and they're starving, they're hungry, what should we do? And she said, supposedly said, let them eat cake. Now, that might not seem like much to you right now because the thing is, you can get anything sweet right now from your own cupboard, go to the store really quick and get something. But back then, they didn't have that stuff, and only really rich people could afford things like cake, pies and things like that, delicacies, desserts. Most poor people, all they had was like bread, maybe some meat, maybe something, but other than that, no. So for her to say that, that was kind of like a slap in their face. Like, oh, why can't they just have cake? Give them cake. They can have it because again, it kind of shows that she doesn't understand what it's like to be a poor person. But here's the thing: she never said that. She never said let them eat cake, but people still hold on to it like it was like she really did. But we know for a fact now she never did. Okay. Now, the French government decided to help out the Americans. Okay, because at this time the Americans were fighting the British for their independence. And the French really, really, really hate the British. So the Americans are actually starting to win some battles in the Revolutionary War. Nobody thought the Americans were going to start win any battles, let alone consecutive battles. So the French were like, you know what, the Americans might pull this off. We just, they just need a little help. Need some soldiers, need some money, things like that, get some ammunition. So France decided to help out America by giving them some money. And this put France in an even bigger financial hole. And on top of that, there was 2 years of bad harvest. Um, Crops weren't growing that well. There wasn't many crops that was actually able to, that was edible. So because of that, because there was a food shortage, the price of food skyrocketed. Now, to the rich people, that's no, it's fine. I can afford it. But to the poor people, man, they like, I can't afford to buy this stuff, so I have to save up the money to maybe get something else, or buy something else that's cheaper, you know. And on top of that, unemployment started to rise. People started losing their jobs. People couldn't work in the fields and things like that. So this led to a panic. People were starting to get frustrated and concerned and worried, and you know, this caused some ruckus. It got to the point where the French king uh, called his ministers and said, "Hey, what's going on here?" And they're like, "Well, the people are kind of upset that us, we're living large, living well, and they're not. They're struggling. They're people dying of starvation and things like that." So yeah. Now remember again, the rich and powerful people. There's only about 500,000 of them, and the poor people there's about 26.5 million of them. So yeah, a lot more poor people than there are rich. So King Louis XVI said, you know what, let's call a special council and talk about getting out of this financial problem, and let's talk about taxes. Okay. So remember, each group was called an estate. Remember from the last lesson. So they had an estate general meeting. Okay. Now the first two estates, again, the clergy and the nobles, they had about 300 representatives. And again, they only represented 500,000 people. Whereas the third estate had 600 representatives, but these 600 people represented 26 million people. That's quite a bit. Okay. Now, how it usually went, it was like this: each estate would get one vote, and anything that was decided on was had to be by majority. So if two groups agreed on something, that was it. Okay. But typically, do you think the rich ever sided with the poor? No, right? They always sided with one another. So the first estate always agreed with the second estate and said, yeah, we shouldn't pay taxes. It should be the poor people, you know? And there's nothing that the poor people of the third estate could do. They'd be like, hey, no, 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 that's not fair. And they'd be like, well, hey, 2 votes to 1, we win. So guess what? You got to pay more taxes. So it was rigged. It was a rigged game from the beginning. And these, representatives for the third estate telling the king, hey, we got to change this whole rule. This has been going on for way too long. This is why nothing changes. This is why things always get worse, because these two groups are always tagging up against us, and we can't flip the bill anymore. We're starving, we're hurting, and things like that. And it's falling on deaf ears. The king's like, look, this has worked for a long time. You know, there's an old saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And the third estate, the poor people are like, what are you talking about? It is broken. This system is broken. King's not hearing it. So on June 17th, the third estate meets in secret to talk about a draft for a constitution. And the constitution would say what it would basically limit the power of the king. What can't they do? What can they do? It would basically restrict um, stuff like, oh, the rich always not paying taxes and stuff like that. No, 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 no. It'd be more of an election, things like that. So they're discussing things to make it fairer for the poor people and not for the rich. So after a while, the first and second estate realized, hey, these guys are meeting in secret at this building. So what they did is they locked up the doors, right, on June 20th. Um, so they couldn't get into that meeting hall. So they're like, all 600 of these representatives for the third estate were like, well, where do we go? Where can we meet? And someone says basically, there's a indoor tennis court right over here. So they all go into the picture you see right there. That's the indoor tennis court. So imagine this is your warm up picture right here. All 600 people crammed inside there, people on the windows and stuff like that, shouting and screaming. There should be a law where the king is not above the law, and if he does something illegal, he should be put to jail. Yeah, that's a good one, good one, good one. They start writing it down. We should have um, a vote for every citizen count, not just the rich. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Write that down. So things got done. But again, so many people were shouting at one time and giving their ideas, you know, that eventually some people who had could not scream or yell loud enough or get people's attention, their thoughts were not heard, you know. Um, but the thing is, what ended up happening is the um, first and second estate found out, and also the king, that these guys are meeting again. So they had to break up the meeting, and they basically made an oath, and this is called the tennis court oath, to not separate and to reassemble whenever necessary until the constitution of the kingdom is established. So they're basically saying we're going to do everything we can, meet when we can, do as much as we can until this constitution is done. So they're not going to give up. They're not taking this lying down. So Louis the 16th is basically told, hey, they met again. They're planning this stuff. And he's like, well, I'm not scared to use the army, the military against these people. And like I said in class, if if these soldiers, let's say there's 200,000 of them, let's just say, okay, 200,000 guys, soldiers, going against 26 million people. Who's going to win? Now, some student a couple years ago basically told me to go, well, the soldiers have guns. Yeah, but their guns are not like the guns we have today. Their guns shot one bullet every 20 seconds because that's how long it took you on average to load up your gun. Now, let's say these soldiers are 100 yards apart from the people. That's the length of a football field. If they shot a bullet, all of them, 100 yards, bam, right? How long would it take you to run across 100 yards? Now, remember, I have one leg, right? I had my calf muscle taken out. I could run 100 yards in 20 seconds. So you could, and I'm sure these poor, starving, angry citizens could easily run 100 yards in less than 20 seconds. So before those guys can even reload, bam, those guys are already there. Okay. So on July 14th, 1789, 900 Parisians took control of the Bastille. Now, the Bastille served a dual purpose. It was a prison for those people who didn't pay their debts, who ticked off the nobleman or the king. So they were held there. Okay. Also, it served as a fort and armory. Now, an armory is where they keep their weapons. The government military typically keeps their weapons, ammunition, things like that. So these French people, 900 of them, busted through, freed the prisoners, and were looking for the weapons. But the thing is, there really weren't any. So they were upset. They were like, God dang it, we could have had guns and things like that. And they said, you know what, let's just tear down the Bastille. So people took, hammers and and sledgehammers, to the walls and some of that. Some people even like kicked at the walls and ripped the bricks out of their with their hands. So literally, it was torn down brick by brick, you know. And on top of that, at the same time, the price of bread reached an all-time high. We're talking record high. Now, like I said in class, I asked the students in class, how much would a loaf of bread cost, like right now? Some students were pretty accurate. They're like, hey, about $3, $4, you know. It's like, yeah, okay. Imagine the price of bread going from that price to like $290. You'd be like, yeah, I'm not eating bread. I'll find another thing to eat besides sandwiches, you know. And that's the thing. This ticked off a lot of people, and the rebels, the poor people, basically took over Paris, the capital. They took over it, and word got to King Louis XVI uh, that the Bastille was destroyed, and he was like, "Oh, is this a revolt?" And they're like, and one of his noblemen guys were like, "No, sir, this is a revolution." Now, if King Louis knew his history, he would know that during a revolution, things don't go too well for the guy in charge of that country that's experienced a revolution. Typically, it doesn't. So, I don't know if he was a student of history, but he's going to learn fast, as you're going to find out in the next couple of lessons. Okay? Now, here's my question to you. Do you think in this country we will ever get to the point where all the poor and average citizens, people who aren't rich, become angry enough that they're going to revolt against the rich and powerful? Now, I gave the example in class. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Dark Knight Rises, where the guy Bane basically releases the prisoners, and he tells the people, go to the rich neighborhoods, drag those people out of their homes, and take what's yours. That's your stuff. That's not theirs, you know. And that's what they do. The people go in, they start dragging like rich people out, out of their homes and stuff like that, putting them in big old trucks, to be hauled away, you know. So that's what I'm saying. Do you think we will ever get to that point where the poor average person, you know, revolts and starts like storming the homes of the rich and powerful people and start taking their stuff and things like that? What do you think? Okay. The writing prompts on the bottom there to help you out. Again, I would suggest you use it. Help yourself out. Okay. Don't make things harder for yourself. Okay. Um, So, with that being said, that's the end of this lesson. So, hopefully, you learned something new. Hopefully, you enjoyed it. Um, so, you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later.